Karen lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood where everyone knew each other. Her days were often filled with gossip and small talk, but lately, her mood had soured. The reason? Her neighbor, Linda, had just built a beautiful new patio. It was the kind of patio that made everyone envious, complete with elegant furniture and twinkling lights. Every time Karen looked out her window, she saw Linda happily entertaining friends and family on that patio. It felt like a slap in the face to Karen, who had always prided herself on being the best homeowner in the area. She couldn't bear the thought of Linda basking in her outdoor success while she sat alone in her yard. As days turned into weeks, Karen's jealousy bubbled over into resentment. She began to imagine ways to ruin Linda's enjoyment of her new space. Surely, if she could make it less appealing, Linda would stop throwing those loud gatherings. After an impulsive brainstorming session one evening, Karen decided she needed help. She reached out to a crew known for doing quick renovations in the neighborhood, even though they didn't have the proper licenses. The thought of sabotaging Linda's patio consumed her thoughts, and soon, Karen was determined to take action. Little did she know how badly it would all backfire. As the days passed, Karen's frustration intensified. She would often sit in her backyard, sipping her morning coffee, while stealing glances at Linda's patio. The laughter and music drifting from next door felt like a constant reminder of what she lacked. It was as if every joyous gathering was a spotlight shining on her own solitude. One sunny Saturday afternoon, Karen watched as Linda hosted a barbecue, surrounded by friends enjoying food and drinks. The tantalizing smell of grilled burgers wafted through the air, and Karen felt a pang of anger mixed with envy. She could see how happy Linda was, so carefree and unbothered. Why should she have all that fun? Karen thought bitterly. The more Karen watched, the more her jealousy festered. Each cheerful shout from Linda's guests seemed to echo in her mind, pushing her further into a pit of hatred. How dare she flaunt her perfect life? Karen muttered under her breath. That evening, unable to shake her negative feelings, Karen paced around her living room, plotting her revenge. The idea of sabotaging Linda's patio began to seem not just tempting but necessary. In her mind, she justified it as a way to restore balance in their neighborhood, a balance she believed had been tipped unfairly in Linda's favor. With each passing moment, the plan simmered inside her, ready to boil over into action. Determined to act on her dark thoughts, Karen sat down at her kitchen table one evening with her laptop open. She began searching for any construction crew that could help her with her plan. Her heart raced with excitement and nervousness as she clicked through various websites. It didn't matter to her that the crew might not be licensed, all she wanted was results. After a few minutes of searching, Karen found a local construction team that advertised quick and cheap services. They claimed to be able to handle everything from renovations to repairs, and their flashy website promised satisfaction. Feeling a rush of adrenaline, she picked up the phone and called the number listed. "Hello. I need some help with a patio," she said, trying to sound casual but feeling the weight of her secret intentions. The voice on the other end assured her that they could help and even offered a discount for cash payments. Within hours, they arranged to meet at her home the next day. Karen felt a mix of glee and anxiety as she contemplated what lay ahead. She envisioned Linda's smile turning to shock when she discovered her patio in ruins. In that moment, Karen convinced herself that taking this drastic step would finally make things right in her neighborhood. Little did she know, her plan would soon spiral out of control. The next morning, Karen paced nervously in her living room, glancing out of the window every few minutes. Finally, she saw a worn-out pickup truck pull into her driveway. The crew consisted of 3 men, each dressed in faded clothes and looking eager to earn some quick cash. They hopped out with a mix of enthusiasm and bravado, ready to tackle what they believed would be an easy job. "Morning. We're here for the patio," one of the crew members said with a grin, his confidence making Karen feel momentarily reassured. She smiled back, masking her true intentions. As she led them to the backyard, she felt a surge of excitement. This was it, the first step in her plan. The men quickly set up tools and began discussing what they would do. However, it became clear that they lacked any formal training or permits for the work they were about to undertake. They joked among themselves while neglecting safety measures, seemingly unconcerned about the consequences of their actions. Karen watched as they started digging around the patio with shovels and picks. She felt a thrill at the thought of Linda's beautiful outdoor space being destroyed. Little did she know that their careless work would soon lead to significant trouble, not just for Linda but for herself as well. As the crew started digging around the patio, Karen felt a rush of adrenaline. She watched intently, imagining how her neighbor Linda would react when she discovered the mess in her backyard. Karen's plan was to make it look like an unfortunate accident, something that would leave Linda feeling defeated and embarrassed. "Just a few more shovels full, and we'll be on our way," one of the workers said nonchalantly, causing Karen to suppress a grin. The crew began to uproot bricks and pull away pavers with little regard for the structure of the patio. Each sound of scraping tools fueled her excitement. This was going to work perfectly. However, as the men continued their work, Karen noticed them joking and laughing without a care in the world. It crossed her mind that they might not be as careful as she had hoped. Still, her focus remained on her ultimate goal. If everything went according to plan, no one would connect her to the chaos. Every time they uncovered more of the patio, Karen's heart raced with anticipation. She envisioned Linda stepping outside later that afternoon, only to find her outdoor oasis destroyed. Unfortunately, Karen was too wrapped up in her own scheme to realize that the crew's reckless handling could lead to unintended consequences that could affect more than just Linda's patio. As the crew continued to work, their laughter and banter grew louder, blending with the sounds of scraping tools. Karen's excitement bubbled over as they tore into the patio structure. Suddenly, one of the workers swung a pickaxe a little too hard, sending debris flying in all directions. It was then that they accidentally struck a water line leading to a shared community garden maintained by the homeowners association. Water gushed out from the broken pipe like a mini fountain, soaking the ground and creating a muddy mess. The crew fell silent for a moment, their playful demeanor replaced by shock. "Uh-oh, we might be in trouble," one of them muttered, glancing nervously at Karen. But instead of panicking, she felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps this could be blamed on bad plumbing and further damage Linda's reputation. However, chaos ensued. The crew scrambled to contain the unexpected flooding while trying to assess the damage. Karen watched in disbelief as her plan began to unravel before her eyes. The sounds of rushing water echoed through the neighborhood, catching the attention of nearby residents and HOA officials who began to come outside to investigate the commotion. In that moment, Karen realized how quickly her scheme had transformed from simple sabotage to something far more complicated, and potentially damaging for herself and her neighbors. The commotion caused by the flooding quickly drew the attention of the homeowners association officials, who rushed to the scene to assess the situation. Seeing water gushing from the broken pipe, they immediately recognized that this disturbance could not only damage community property but also disrupt the neighborhood's harmony. After taking note of the crew working in Karen's yard, questions began to arise. Meanwhile, Karen watched in panic as HOA members began questioning the workers about what had happened. She felt her heart racing, her plan was falling apart right before her eyes. The crew fumbled for answers, and their lack of professionalism only fueled suspicion. When one of the HOA members spotted Karen lurking nearby, he approached her with a frown. "Did you hire these men?" he asked pointedly. Karen stammered, trying to come up with a convincing excuse. But it didn't take long for the truth to unravel as other neighbors started piecing together the timeline of events. With each passing minute, Karen became more aware that she was not going to escape this mess unscathed. The HOA recorded everything and promised to investigate further. As they left, Karen realized she might be facing serious repercussions for her reckless decision to sabotage Linda's patio, feeling a growing dread about how deeply she would be implicated in this entire fiasco. As news of the flooding spread, Karen's neighbors began to piece together what had happened. They gathered in small groups, exchanging whispers and pointed glances in her direction. The initial shock of the incident quickly morphed into anger, with many residents accusing her of being responsible for hiring the unlicensed crew. Karen felt the weight of their stares pressing down on her when she stepped outside to retrieve her mail. "Did you really think no one would find out?" one neighbor sneered. "How could you put everyone's property at risk like that?" Each comment stung, and Karen's heart sank deeper with every word. At first, she tried to defend herself, claiming it was all a mix-up, but the truth hung heavily in the air. "We trusted you," another neighbor exclaimed. The sense of community that once surrounded her now shifted into a wall of resentment. Karen's mind raced as she realized that friendships she had taken for granted were crumbling away. The more her neighbors gathered to discuss the incident, the more isolated Karen felt. The whispered conversations turned into pointed accusations, leaving her with a sinking feeling of dread. She was no longer just behind the scenes. Now, everyone knew about her plan, and they were turning against her. Guilt began to settle in as she understood the magnitude of her actions and the impact they had on her relationships within the neighborhood. As the HOA investigation concluded, Karen received a letter in the mail that felt like a punch to the gut. The Homeowners Association had decided to fine her for the damages caused by the flooding, amounting to several $1,000s. This penalty included not just the repairs for the broken water line but also fines for hiring an unlicensed crew without permits. Each fine made her stomach twist tighter with anxiety. But that wasn't the end of it. Several of her neighbors, furious over the chaos she had caused, were taking legal action against her for the damage to their properties. They claimed the flood disrupted their lives, damaged their gardens, and even made some areas unsafe for children to play. Karen felt overwhelmed as she learned about potential lawsuits piling up against her. Her once solid standing in the neighborhood was now crumbling under scrutiny. In a moment of desperation, Karen tried to reach out to some neighbors, hoping for forgiveness and understanding, but their anger was palpable. "You ruined our community," one neighbor said coldly. Alone in her living room, Karen couldn't help but reflect on how her jealousy had led her down this dark path. What felt like a harmless plan to sabotage Linda had turned into a nightmare that threatened not just her finances but also her reputation in the neighborhood forever. Sitting alone in her living room, Karen felt the weight of her choices pressing down on her like a heavy blanket. The excitement she once felt at the thought of sabotaging Linda's patio had now transformed into a sinking feeling of regret and embarrassment. The very idea that had fueled her actions now seemed utterly foolish. She had let envy cloud her judgment, leading her to take drastic measures that hurt not only Linda but also herself and the entire community. Every glance out her window at Linda's patio felt like a reminder of her failure. What was once a source of jealousy became a symbol of everything she had lost: her friendships, her reputation, and the trust of her neighbors. Karen realized that her attempt to make Linda look bad had backfired spectacularly, revealing her own shortcomings instead. It was painful to acknowledge that she had not only damaged property but also jeopardized the sense of belonging that had defined her life in the neighborhood. As she replayed the events in her mind, she understood that her actions stemmed from a deep-seated insecurity rather than a desire for justice. The embarrassment of being exposed as the instigator weighed heavily on her heart, and she knew she needed to make amends. But could she ever repair the damage she had done? In that moment of reflection, Karen's path toward redemption began to take shape, though it felt daunting and uncertain. As Karen contemplated her actions and their repercussions, she realized the critical lesson learned: handling conflicts is best approached with understanding and openness rather than jealousy and sabotage. The desire to bring down a neighbor had not only hurt Linda but had also destroyed the trust within her community. Reflecting on her choices, Karen understood that addressing feelings of envy in a constructive way could have led to healthier relationships. Instead of trying to undermine Linda, she could have reached out to connect, expressing her feelings and perhaps even learning from her neighbor's happiness. The thought of collaborating or finding common ground felt much more fulfilling than the bitterness she engaged in. In seeking revenge, she had lost much more: her friendships and respect. With determination to make things right, Karen resolved to apologize to Linda and her neighbors. Repairing the damage would take time, but she knew it was essential to begin mending fences. She imagined volunteering to help in the community garden, showing that she wanted to contribute positively instead of sowing discord. Ultimately, Karen's experience served as a cautionary tale about the dangers of letting envy dictate actions. By choosing empathy and communication moving forward, she hoped not only to regain her standing in the neighborhood but also to foster a spirit of cooperation and friendship among all its residents.